Hi, Aviator Agents is an agentic framework that is used purpose-built to manage your code and perform migrations. So in this particular demo, we're going to show you how to use that to perform a simple migration on a library. Internally, Aviator Agents actually uses a list of different agents and who interact with each other to actually perform these migrations. So let's get started. I've already selected a repository, and I'm going to ask the agent to do the migration of SQL Alchemy, which is a Python library, and it had a big in between 1.4 to 2.0. So we're going to try to do that migration. So now the agents have already started. They're trying to look for like, okay, would you like to apply this migration to a specific directory in your repository, or should we just try the entire repository? And please let me know. Also for clarity, I'll confirm that we are managing SQL Alchemy 1.4 to SQL Alchemy 2.0. All right, so we're gonna try to do the entire repository. And at this point, it's going to kind of like try to look for references. So this is like, it's emulating how a typical human would try to understand how a migration should be performed. So looks like it actually found some documentation. So let's take a quick look at it. Looks like this is a migration which was one of the great sources to explain how everything changed between like 1.3, 1.4 to 2.0. And it's a fairly large document. So it says it's going to use this information. If you don't like this information, you can also provide else as reference. Typically, some good examples of this reference could be another code change where somebody may have done this migration, which can be used as baseline to perform a migration. At the end of the day, think about like what a human would need to perform this migration and provide similar examples. In this case, we're going to just let's go with it. In this case, we're going to just use a reference that it eventually will parse this internally, that it's going to use it, and now it's ready to get started. So let's go. At this point, it's going to download the source code and then be able to identify which files are relevant. In this case, it found 124 files, which is probably like most of the Python files in the code base. And then it will also perform the code splitting. Eventually, this entire end-to-end workflow creates pull requests for you to analyze, and it will also kind of like try to validate the build status, make sure it actually is passing. So it suggested that it's going to create 18 different groups so that all the pull requests are similar. The good thing here is now you can actually look at the status here a little bit more in the summary section. There are still a bunch of like files which are getting processed. Meanwhile, as you can see, a vast majority of the files require no change because there are very few changes which actually this. So let's speed it up from here a little bit so that we can get to the end. Okay, looks like it just finished. At this point, all the files have, as you can see, there's only like 2 files which are modified, and the rest of the files were actually no changes. You can also look at now it's creating these pull requests. So if I go to the PR status view, which shows me the details, it already gives me links of 2 pull requests that I've created. Let's open them to see what's going on. And as you can see, the rest of the files were not modified, so it did not create a pull request for them. So this is like inside the group of Sopel. And here you can see kind of like it performed this migration. The other thing at this point the agent is going to do, if you go back here, is it's actually going to validate these results. So by validating the results, what agents are performing internally is they're looking at the status, the build status, to make sure like the builds are actually passing. So obviously, if you have a failing build at the beginning, that can be more complicated to verify. But assuming you had a passing build, the goal here is to kind of like use that information to make sure we are still passing the results. And let's look at the other one. So this is the other one. Well, looks like the build already failed. So in this case, we kind of like tried to do this migration and it failed. And if you go back here, looks like the agents have already identified that the builds have failed. So what they're going to do now is it's actually going to take the output of your build failure and pass it back to the agents to try to reproduce that. So let's take a quick look at what's going on here. So internally it looks like, okay, actually looks like the first one already passed. So here, like the first one passed already and seems like it was in the first attempt. And the second one failed, and you can see kind of like it gives you the entire build failure that you can look at here, also look at the status. So if I look at this file again, seems like there was a force push. That means like this file has already been, we're already doing a second attempt on that. So as you can see, it actually like splits their changes where it's only doing second attempts on the pull requests that have not passed in the first attempt. So at this point, it seems like it is going to do a second attempt. And if you go back into the chat, an interesting thing is like agents will try to retry after 3 attempts. And at the end of the day, if the 3 attempts do not pass, it might give up. In the middle of it, you can also provide some additional references and additional context that will help agents actually like use that context to make the results better. So it's a more interactive way of actually like trying to get the results. Oh, looks like actually all the builds have passed. So the second attempt actually worked out. So if we look at this one, yep, the PRs have been verified, and it converted these PRs from a draft state as to a review state, and you can add reviewers to it as well as like at this point merge it. So as you can see, the goal here with Agentic AI framework is to essentially emulate how humans perform migrations by using some of the external sources as well as looking at the failure results and making retries. So give it a try and let us know what you think. Thank you.